Welcome, everybody. Today we got Greg Pettis from Naturecide with us. Greg, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So you're with Naturecide, but we want to learn a little bit about you as well. So who's Greg Pettis? How'd you get into pest control? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I've been in the industry about 30 years. I started back in 1990, and then I decided to go out on my own in 2006. And so I've been through a lot of the different phases of pest control. I remember when they were phasing out chlordane, Dursban, and I started to notice a trend in the industry back then that some of the products that we were using were being condemned. And so back in 2015, after having my own pest control company for many years, I started to play around with green products, and we stumbled upon the Naturecide product line. And so after representing them off to the side for about 7 years, they asked me to come on board as their VP of business development. And that was in 2022. So now I'm full-time with Naturecide. My wife runs our pest control company based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. She's the CEO. We have about 26 employees.
Okay. Wow. That's awesome. So you were in pest control first, and then you found your way into this. Was there like a push into that besides, materials are being gone? Was there other reasons that you started looking into, like, I guess we'd say alternative, or I guess in this case, a lot of botanical sorts of products?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started to notice that there was opportunities in what we call the green side of the pest control industry. I had accounts that had to be green, and there were some that were federally funded that had to be green. And so I was searching for solutions and ones that worked. Originally, I was pretty disappointed with what was out there. Either it had too much of a strong odor, smelled like a sports cream, or it didn't have efficacy. And so it took a lot to impress me. And when we first came across Naturecide, I was pretty much biased to start with. But after using the products for a few months, we became believers and found that there was a place for this product line in the industry. And it's not the only one. We have a full-blown green program at my pest control company in Pennsylvania. But as far as Naturecide goes, I am seeing the industry open up more and more, especially as we have come out with other products. And then the one product that we have, our all-purpose, just received the OMRI listed status about a year ago. And so that's being used in food production and things like that. So, and these are things that if you're in the industry, you're going to have these opportunities come along more and more, not just because of other products being banned or pushed out, but because the commercial industries, there's now the well certifications for buildings, there's the LEED certifications, and these are big companies. And so if you have tools in your toolbox that you can use in those accounts and you already speak that language, you're well ahead of the game. Also, food safety is another big thing that's coming up in the industry. One of my technicians at my pest control company has his PCQI and SQF, and we're having that side of our company explode. And I would imagine that more and more pest control companies are going to be diving into that. It's a little bit more IPM based, but I don't see us going backwards anytime soon.
Yeah. Now, you're going to be up in Syracuse for our November 5th Upstate Conference for the New York Pest Management Association. You're going to be presenting all this on, green pest control and whatnot. So anybody that wants to check that out, if you're in upstate New York or the surrounding area, we've got a great program coming. Now, you mentioned green pest control. So over the years, I think this has evolved, let's say. So what today, if you say a green pest control program, that can have a lot of different meanings. What's that mean to you, and what are some of those attributes?
That is a great question, and I really am looking forward to talking about this at the meeting. Let me just say it this way. I always look at everything through the lenses of two things. One is risk, and the other is opportunity. So when we talk about green, there's many different facets of that. We could refer to it as an IPM program, but that doesn't necessarily mean that products are all natural. And there's different phases. So you have something that has to be all natural or organic certified. That is an extreme version. Others, you just simply have to have products that are non-toxic. And so there's different categories when you talk about green. We have the FIFRA 25B, which is the EPA exempt products, and all the Naturecide products fall in that category. But there are all different kinds of opportunities out there in what we call the green market. And I'm going to break that down in the meeting. But then after we talk about risks, we're going to talk about opportunities, as I mentioned earlier, not just with commercial accounts, but there are a lot of pest control companies that either are establishing a green division or are going all green by itself. And that, again, that means many different things. Some people would refer to as a glue board as green, as a tin cat as green, because you're not applying traditional products with an EPA number. So there's many different categories, and I'm going to talk about that. It's a really complex subject, and I appreciate the question, but we're going to dive into that into the meeting.
Yeah. Now, over the years, there's been a shift as well from on the client side of pulling green products and green practices into the market. Where are we today with that? I know in the past there was maybe slow uptake as far as demand would go. You'd have a residential customer that would say, yeah, no, I want a green or a quote unquote safe product. But then they would not really want to pay for that sort of thing. Where are we today? Are we seeing movement on that? It sounds like some pull into the market is happening.
There is. Some of that's because of market demand. You know, I jokingly say 25 years ago, if somebody called in and said, you have something that's green or all natural, you would tell them to call one of your competitors, right? But these days, if you don't have that program, you're going to be on the outside looking in, especially with those commercial accounts that we mentioned earlier. But on the residential side, we've noticed in our market, in my local pest control company, that has really changed. I would say we are now at about 15 to 20% of calls coming in. People will ask in one way or another. They all ask it in a different way, whether they say green or all natural or organic, but they're asking us to come in with what in their minds are safer products. And so I would say we are now at about 15 to 20%, and that goes by market. I live in a very conservative area. We have a lot of Mennonite and Amish in where I live, and they're not as interested in all natural products. However, we have a lot of New Yorkers that come to Lancaster to see the Amish. They say this would be a great place to live. And then when they want pest control, they're more conscious about what's being applied and will ask, hey, do you guys have an all natural product? And so we have positioned ourselves in my pest control company to be ready for that, because we're getting more of an outside influence coming in and demanding it. And again, that really does go by the different markets that you're in. So it really depends.
Yeah. So now you mentioned a bunch of words that all of a sudden all the red flags go up, and all, safe, green, organic. There's a lot of language that can be a little bit semantic, a little bit nuanced. What advice do you have for people? Because there's a lot of confusion, and like you said, people will ask in a lot of different ways. Do you have advice for a PCO and how to talk about this sort of thing? Because it can be a difficult conversation, let's say, to have over the phone with a customer in any sort of quick way.
That is a really good question. So you want to have your staff prepared for those questions in advance, and you want to be very clear with them. When you're describing a green program, if you're going to say that everything you're using is all natural, then you need to use products that are all natural. And as you know, things like our metal mouse catchers are not all natural, but you could use it as in terms of a green or IPM program. So I try to stay away from using the term all natural when talking to a customer before they get into the program. The other thing that I'll mention is that as a safeguard, I also recommend that if you are drawing up a green only program, that you have a specific agreement or contract for that spells out in your fine print that you reserve the right to use traditional or non-green products in the event of some type of crisis situation where you need to gain or regain control of certain pests. And I put that in there because every now and then there is a situation where, say, the product that you need to use is not fit for 25B to shut something down. But, my goal and what I do is to close that gap every day using the products that I represent and also teaching with other products. I'm always looking for other products out there that can do the same thing that traditional products can do. However, you don't want to have a lawsuit because a technician decides to do something that's outside of your green box in the event to shut something down that could be, say, a public health situation or something like that. But it is a tough subject and a touchy subject, and it is a really good question. I like to answer those questions very specifically when companies call me from around the country and say, I have this situation. I like to go over it with them, consider their options. But the good news is that every day in our industry, we are having new products coming out that are either all natural or certified green in one way or another, or they're on a list that is coming out of different organizations that are considered green. And as we move forward in the industry, you're going to see more and more of these products coming out. Naturecide just came out with another product for rat and mouse repelling, and it came again as a need in the industry. We were looking around, we saw, there really isn't something for keeping rodents out of buildings other than what we had to use on the outside, our Pest Management X2 Plus. But now we found a product that will cut them off at the pass that you can use on the inside, our rat and mouse pouches. So the industry is getting creative. And I would suggest that this year at Pest World, there's going to be a lot of new products introduced in the industry that will lean this direction. And I'm noticing that of all the new technology coming out, a lot of it is leaning in what we would call the green direction, which is very exciting. Even they now have birth control for rats that is considered green, which I didn't see that one coming, but it's fascinating.
It is. Now, I liked what you said there, having sort of an escape hatch clause sort of in your contract. That's something that I think a lot of times people don't realize, like even in certified organic food production, there's an escalation process to say, hey, we've done the mechanical controls and the least toxic methods and up the list until you go, hey, this thing has to happen with an alternative, and having that up front with the client is a really nice little buffer there. That's fantastic. Are there benefits to the operator to implement sort of these kinds of programs versus, say, a traditional program?
Yes, there are. One is you have a lot less liability. So that's when I'm talking about the risk factor. Also, a lot of times there's less risk for contamination, not just to the pest control operator applying, but also to the sites where he's applying. And so there are benefits with that. And years ago, we used to be very defensive when customers would put us to the fire, so to say, about the products that we're using. But these days, now you can say, well, if that's your concern, let me suggest that we use products that are all natural, that do this, that, and the other. And sometimes they do work a little bit different. Sometimes the modes of action are different, and we have to explain it a little bit differently. But I've noticed that most customers are open to that. But you brought up an interesting question. So I have found more resistance sometimes on the pest control operator side, because especially the ones that have been doing it for a long time. A lot of times when I open up my sessions, I will ask the audience how long they've been in the industry by a show of hands, according to how many years. And when I get to about the 20 to 25, 30 years in the industry, I always jokingly call them the dinosaurs that are about to go extinct if they don't listen to me. And I don't say that to be arrogant, but those are the ones that are used to doing it the old ways in the industry, are not as open to change. And usually after they see that the enemy is not the green programs, it is the refusal to change with the times, because at some point, yeah, I predict that if you don't have a green toolbox like we're talking about, you're going to be on the outside looking in. And I have seen this with different opportunities. And we have some pretty large customers. Naturecide out in the West, in the LA area, they have huge homes that they treat. Some of them, they won't even tell me who they are because they have NDAs. They're Hollywood stars.
Yeah.
But it's getting to the point where if you don't have a green program, you're going to need to have one, or you're going to find yourself losing accounts.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how impactful is it to the operating procedures of a standard program to convert it into utilizing alternative products?
So that's a really good question. There's difference in application styles. For instance, Naturecide Service Company in LA will spray pretty much everything in the yard with an all natural product that not only will kill insects, but will also repel snakes, rats, mice, and lizards. So they're applying in areas where traditional pest control operators would not. When you want to use a 25B product in place of a standard product that we've been using for years, I always say you might want to go monthly or every other month. So you're going to increase your service ratios, and you might want to be more liberal with where you apply. That's just something that I've noticed across the board. But the good news is that you can. There's even though you're spraying in areas that say may not be traditional, there is really less impact to the environment because once the product dries, it's not as a threat. For instance, bees will recognize it and they'll just fly away. They won't be killed by it. They'll be repelled by it, which is a really nice feature of certain products in the industry, because they will address the problem at hand, but then they will repel future infestations, whether it is insects or rodents or mice or snakes. And that has its benefits, but it really depends on the product that you're talking about. And those are things that I like to break down one by one, look at different categories of products, because you have your sprays, you have your dusts, and they all work differently.
Yeah. Now, if when you mentioned like pollinator protection, which is a huge issue these days, and especially with some of our keeping some of our existing chemistries in place, could a green program like this help protect some of those materials from future legislation? Let's say, like things coming off the market. If people move more to things that are naturally, have a pollinator protection aspect to them, there isn't as much need to legislate away other chemistries. And I'm asking you to speculate on this. We don't know, but what's your thoughts in that regard?
Well, I am very hopeful that things kind of shake out there. I will tell you this, that if somebody is using a traditional product, it's not that the green products are going to push them out of the market. It doesn't really work that way. I know that that's sometimes how people think, but I will just say it this way. There is a pushback also on green products because there's doubts about efficacy. And for instance, there are many states that require registration of FIFRA 25B products. However, more and more states are requiring efficacy testing to prove that your all natural product actually does what you say it will. So there's pushback on that side also. So it really is a slow moving target that we're talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, in that regard as well, how has like labeling standards changed for green products? I know in the past, and we're talking 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was kind of the Wild West with labeling requirements on 25B products. Where are we today with that?
It's definitely getting dialed in by governing bodies, because there has been, like you just mentioned, those claims out there, and it's been the Wild Wild West. So that's one thing that I'll say that I've appreciated about where Naturecide started. They have efficacy on all their products, so we are able to register in those states. But not just on the pest control side, there is the consumer side where you'll see products that claim this, that, or the other, and the big push is that they're all natural. So there is an issue with that as well. And keeping your product professional and doing what you say it's going to do is very important. And that is why I'm excited to represent a portion of that in the pest control market, because I understand those concerns. And I was actually anti-green until 2015 because of the very things that we're talking about here. I was disappointed. I had frustrated technicians. I had angry customers. And that was why I just said, this isn't working out. And I was, really, really anti-green. And it took a lot to convince me. But again, because I realize as an owner of a pest control company that this is the direction that the industry is going, I've decided to not just kind of ride its tailcoats, but to get out in front of it, because it is my belief that if you don't have a program, at least for certain situations where it has to be all green or organic or well certified, LEED certified, you're going to have a problem. You're going to lose accounts. And if you don't mind me just saying real quick, I had this experience about 5 years, about 2010, 2011, about 5 years before I stumbled across Naturecide, where we had an account. It was a food processing plant, and they began to become a Walmart distributor. So they were distributing to Walmart, and they had protocols pushed down to them by Walmart that what I'm going to say back then was not industry standard. It is now changing. And when I saw the requirements, I said to the company that was our customer, I said, this is not industry standard. And before I could say, Bob's your uncle, I was on the outside looking in. They said, thank you very much. We found another company. And I couldn't believe it, because we had a very good relationship with this company. But they weighed the difference. They said, am I going to listen to this local pest control company and lose Walmart? Or am I going to find another pest control company so I can sell to Walmart? So that was one of my wake-up calls. And that was what I mean when I said earlier that companies are going to be in this position. And I made a shift in my mindset after that. And that's why I was open. By the time Naturecide approached me, I was open, because I said, I don't want to ever be in that position again, especially if this is the direction that the industry is going. And I'll say this also, many years ago, when you had an organic company customer, it was very much of a battle. You had to, and I remember getting in it with the inspectors, and they were requiring things that were ridiculous to me. And I said, well, there's no way we can control the issues that they have if we follow this criteria for this organic certified production plant. Now I don't sweat it, because I know that we do have protocols, we do have products now, and I've enjoyed being a part of that. And it's one of the reasons that we decided to get the OMRI listed status for one of the Naturecide products. And it's actually being used now by companies that are doing things like fumigations. So not as a fumigant, but they're replacing fumigants with an all-natural product in a different capacity. So again, I'm excited, but there are challenges.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. This is great stuff. So if people want to talk to you more about this, how can they get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me is to email me, and my email address is greg@medx-rx.com. That is my name, GREG, at medx-rx.com. And I check my email pretty regularly. So if you have any questions, not only just about the Naturecide product line, but if you're in a situation where you're unsure what to do, you have some hesitation because you have an opportunity to get a green account, but you're getting nervous because you don't speak that language yet, that's where I can come in and help out. And also, if there's a situation where you sense a threat by getting a lawsuit or something like that, because you need to move in a direction that is more green, also, I can probably help out with those accounts also.
Wow, awesome. And we look forward to seeing you up here November 5th for your presentation on green pest control programs. Thanks for joining us, Greg.
Thank you for having me. Look forward to seeing you then.
Yep.